It's witchcraft.
Hi, and welcome to the Solarium, Chelle and Layla's herb-filled sunlit sanctuary, where we've spent a few days dusting things off, cleaning things, rearranging, and finding all the green growing flowers and maybe a little bit of cannabis in the corners. And today we're in this newly growing space to bring you some books, some tea, some oracle cards, and maybe a surprise guest.
And I'm Shell. And it's funny when you kind of clean and clear. We found some treasures and we wanted to talk to you about them today. We've got, like Layla said, we've got some books, we've got some great oracle decks. And I've said a million times in the past, I'm not a huge oracle deck fan, but I actually have a deck that we're going to talk about with a super secret guest today that I actually really like.
Out of the two oracle decks that we're looking at today, I would say that our super secret guests deck is probably my favorite. And we're not going to mention that deck for a minute, but we will tell you what books we've got and the oracle deck that maybe was our second favorite this particular time.
Now, Layla, I have something really important before we get into the books.
What's that?
What are you smoking and what are you drinking?
Well, today I am really excited to be drinking cold tea rather than my usual.
I've turned her, people. I've turned her.
Not only that, but this beautiful 80-degree, just after Memorial Day, sunny day has definitely turned me into a cold tea drinker at the moment. Now, it is liberally doused with lemonade. What do they call that? An Arnold Palmer?
Arnold Palmer, homemade Arnold Palmer.
There you go. Except it's probably like a little more than 50% lemonade because I like it like that. So yeah.
I am actually also drinking tea, cold tea. I am drinking just some sweet tea. Love me a good sweet tea on a hot day. Even better when it has been sun teed all morning. And as far as smoking, got a little thing, Purple Haze. Been smoking some pre-rolled joints of that. That's been delightful today. Kind of got me into that book and, looking at some decks, reading some books and chill. That's why, a good joint when you're reading is just, mwah, love it.
Absolutely perfect. And we are lucky enough to be passing that joint back and forth in the solarium today in this beautiful sunlit space. We've got some cucumbers up out of the ground. We've got some tomato plants up out of the ground. Did your mint make it at all?
I think my mint died in the last overnight surprise fees.
Well, so at least we have most of our plants growing and sprouting and blooming here in the solarium. So while we're here passing this joint back and forth and drinking our sun tea, okay, mine is a little more lemonade than tea, but still, we're going to be talking about these books. This first book is from Moon Books Publishing, sent us Pagan Portals, Cerridwen, Keeper of the Cauldron by Danu Forrest.
Now, I was really excited about this because their series of Pagan Portal books are pretty good, and I've read a few others from the Pagan Portals, so I was super excited to get this book and read on Cerridwen.
Heard a lot about Danu Forrest, so I was excited to tackle this one as well. Now, our next books and decks are all from Red Wheel Wiser. The next one we'll be talking about is Tarot Tableau Revolution by Alviz Hernando. Chelle had a little trouble with this one, and I absolutely loved it right from the beginning. But I think after a little coaxing, I've turned Chelle around, and we'll talk about why she may not have liked it at first glance and what turned her around afterwards.
Our third book for today is Entering Hekate's Cauldron by Cyndi Brannen. We have done Cyndi Brannen books before, other books in the Hekate series. So we're setting up for this to be just as good as the other ones we've done in this trilogy.
Now, I always love to dig into a good Hekate book, and I have some favorite authors, and I know some people love Cyndi Brannen, some people not so much. I liked this one.
I think this was probably my favorite out of her three, but we'll get into that a little later.
Then we have two oracle decks, and before we introduce who our special guest is going to be, the first oracle deck we'll talk about is called the Initiate's Oracle. Marcella Kroll and Adam Smith. This is an oracle deck that is based on experiences that the authors had on their journey through Egypt. So it has a lot of Egyptian influences in it. And it's a very beautiful deck. We were talking about this earlier, and we kind of described it as a cross between American traditional tattoo style and Pennsylvania Dutch artwork was kind of our first impression. And Egyptian came through after that for us, I think, more of like the coloring and the bold lines.
Yeah. I definitely felt that as well.
So we'll talk about that. And then why don't you introduce who our special guest is going to be once she gets here for a little bit of tea and what deck of hers we're talking about today.
Okay, so we have the absolute pleasure to bring back again to the show Judika Illes, and she is going to be talking with us about her oracle called the Magic Spells Oracle deck. So we are super excited to have Judika here with us today, and we're going to get through some of these other things, and then we're going to bring her on. Yay!
Yay! Very excited. We love it when Judika comes on. All right, so let's start here with Cerridwen, Keeper of the Cauldron by Danu Forrest.
I liked this book, Layla. I think that this book packed a whole big punch in a whole little amount of pages.
This book surprised me. It's very little. It's a little paperback. It's very small. And I expected what was inside to be small as well. And I was quite surprised at how academic and how thorough the information on Cerridwen is in this little tiny book.
You know, I would absolutely say 110% that if you are looking for a book on Cerridwen, obviously there are a lot of great books out there, especially the Christopher Hughes book on Cerridwen. But if you are looking for something small, compact, and at a significant cheaper cost, this is 110% your number one pick. Like you said, academic. And, you know, I'm not always one that likes the super academic books, but I was able to get through it. I loved it. I was able to soak in all of what Danu Forrest was trying to convey to me about Cerridwen. And the exercises made me feel it even more. And, you know, I love books that give you exercises to go along with it. So this was a good one.
Cerridwen's story and some of the stories about Taliesin and her history, her folklore, I really enjoy. And this book went into all of that. And because it's so little, it cuts out a lot of what you might call fluff. So you might consider this book as a little dry, but only because anything extraneous has been cut out. It's just information, it's well presented, and it's pretty easy to read, but there isn't anything extra.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. But it's still written in a
Solid.
way that any person of any level can absolutely get a ton of good info out of this book.
Absolutely. Love this book. Would absolutely recommend it. And I love that it's stripped down and it's short. Danu did an excellent job conveying a ton of information in a very little book.
Love Pagan Portals.
5 brooms up.
5 brooms up.
All right. What do we got next? Oh. Yay. Okay, this one.
This book I struggled with a little bit. The Tarot Tableau. So let's talk about that one for a minute.
All right. Tarot Tableau Revolution by Maria Alviz Hernando. And I loved this book right from the moment I picked it up because this is how I read tarot. And I didn't realize that there was a name for it. And it's Tableau. It's called Tableau Tarot.
I think maybe that's where my struggle was too, because I guess once I was able to actually deep dive into it, I realized this is how I read tarot. But I don't know. I guess I'm just weirded out by the fact that it has to have a name now.
Tarot Tableau Revolution is all about reading the cards as an interconnected story. The idea is that instead of reading an individual card with its personal meanings, combined with the positional meaning that it's in, and then just reading that is one encapsulated seed in your reading. Rather than doing it that way, a tableau reading is reading everything interconnected together as a story. The position each card is in is just one small part of the story that helps to tell you the nuance where you're looking at with that card. The rest of it is looking at the cards as a whole. What does the picture look like? What's the predominant color? What themes are repeated? What are you drawn to? And then reading the cards all together as if they tell a whole story. And that's how Chelle and I have always read. But this book breaks it down piece by piece and explains how to do that. And I think for Chelle, it felt weird. It was taking something she did instinctually and breaking it up almost like a mathematical formula. And we know how much you love math.
No, not mathy, not mathy at all.
And this book gets into things that she would do and I do instinctually, like say knighting. There's a section in this book on something called knighting, and it's just what you might think of on a chessboard. Think of how a knight piece moves on a chessboard, kind of like in an L position, up 3 and over 1. You can sometimes see connections with cards like that, like the beginning, the first and last position of a knight's chess move. Or in a diagonal, you might see cards in a diagonal and realize that the first and the last card in that diagonal have a directional meaning that corresponds to each other. And I think explaining what these things meant in a very precise and mathematical way and how to do that, like cornering, looking at the cards that might be in each corner and seeing how they relate to each other. It's just different ways of finding correlations and weaving the cards together in a story. And I think making it clinical made you not like it.
And I think that's exactly what it is. And I was waiting for you to finish your thought, and I was going to say it felt very clinical to me. And I'm not saying that it's not good stuff, because, like you said, Layla, it's stuff that we do instinctively. It was weird for me to see it mapped out in a book. It'd be like if you were mapping out breathing to me. I'd be like, that's so weird.
Right.
And that's kind of how I felt about this book. It's not that this book was lacking in any way, shape, or form. It was just weird to me.
And coming at it from that perspective kind of puts you off it a little bit, and you put this up on a shelf.
Right.
And it took me kind of gushing about how much I really enjoyed this book and how it took something that I loved to do and explained it in a very interesting way. It took kind of me raving about how much I liked it for you to revisit it. And I think you like it now.
And then I had a little aha moment about it.
Yeah. So it's an excellent, interesting way to look at reading tarot cards. And if you would like something that is above and beyond positional meanings of cards and positional reading, where it actually teaches you how to look at the cards symbolically, almost like dream interpretation, interpreting the cards in a full layout, in a full woven tapestry of a story. I love it.
As far as our books go, our final book today, great book, Cyndi Brannen, Entering Hekate's Cauldron, Spells, Spirits, Rites, and Rituals. This is kind of quasi part of a trilogy. She's got Entering Hekate's Garden and Entering Hekate's Cave, and then this book, again, Entering Hekate's Cauldron. Great trilogy, but they're standalones. And I think that's what I like about these 3 books, is that the way Cyndi wrote them, they are standalones, but they also can make a great collection. So this kind of goes over a lot of interesting stuff, ways to honor Hekate. One thing I like is she opens up the book, and I really have to quote this, and I'm generally not a big quote right from the book, but she writes in the beginning of chapter 4, it's called Calling the Crossroads. Without darkness, there is no light. Without death, there is no life. Without ending, there is no beginning. Without cut, there is no growth. Without gate, there is no key. Without 3, there is no 1. Without the crossroads, there is no way. And when I came across that just felt like Hekate speaking to me. There are many points in this book where she brings you to a point where you feel like just reading the words off the page, you are reading Hekate's words, ways to honor her, ways to do ritual around her, how to connect with the deeper world, your deeper self. This is, again, I've said before, we've reviewed some of her other books, and this is exceptional stuff on Hekate, which we've said before is kind of hard to find. She's broke through a barrier and is giving us the Hekate content we've been looking for.
I really liked this book because it breaks everything down basically into how to worship Hekate. And she talks about how to take a ritual bath, how to create an altar. She talks about how to give offerings to Hekate. She talks about how to discover which parts of Hekate you are most drawn to. And if you go through this book, you are basically giving yourself a crash course in how to work with and honor deity and how to do that in a very magical, very personal way. And so I love that, not just for Hekate, but just to give you a framework of how you can work with a deity in your life. And she does talk about other deities in here, working in tarot, working with herbs. It's a solid book. I liked it.
There's plenty of exercises that you could definitely transition to honor other deity. So that's, there's a lot of transferable things in this book as well. Cyndi Brannen has done solid Hekate work, and this is another example of that.
Yeah, she's definitely one that's very easy to read. It's very easy on the brain as you go through it. It's still packed with information. And this particular book has a lot of spells. She talks a lot about how to craft your own spells, how to craft rituals. She gives you history and what you could and should do. And it's just got a lot of solid information and practical advice on how to do things, not just how to think about Hekate, actually how to practice and worship Hekate.
Right. Again, not a history book, but more like a workbook, my favorite.
All right, so moving on to the next thing is our first oracle deck of the evening before we get to our special guest who is taking her boots off and hanging up her broom as we speak.
Yay!
We have the Initiate's Oracle. I open this up. I'm looking at the scarab on the front. I'm looking at the colors. They're bold. They're American traditional tattoo colors. That's all I can think of here.
I agree 100%. Yeah.
The crow on the front of the book is so cool. Some of this art is just beautiful. If you like that style, bold lines, bold colors, you will definitely like this particular oracle deck.
Now, when I saw the back of the cards, my first thought was that it was like Pennsylvania Dutch hex signs.
Same, exactly.
It's got that look, that boldness, the sharp lines. This is very American for being Egyptian.
I thought Pennsylvania Dutch too. It's the geometric designs of very bold, sharp, defined colors. And I can't help it. I see very American designs here. And I saw the scarab on the front and it looks very Egyptian. I don't mind it, but it feels very much like a mixing of cultures, maybe a mixing of genres here a little bit. Again, don't mind. It just threw me a little.
Well, and as you stated, the authors, Marcella Kroll and Adam Smith, had kind of taken a trip to Egypt, and this is what this deck was inspired on. So I think that it's definitely a mix of their personal culture and what they gleaned from their trip in Egypt. So I think that's where we kind of see the cross between that American flair, but Egyptian imagery.
Marcella Kroll, she lives in Los Angeles, I believe. So, maybe there could be some of that American artwork flavor coming into this very Egyptian deck. But, I kind of dig it. It works. I love the artwork.
I do think this is a very good deck to utilize. This would be something I may pull a card for a spell. If I'm doing a spell for something, I may shuffle and pull a card to work with it that way. Potentially pull a card for a meditation. But again, my jam is tarot. We know this.
Now, these cards, again, I'm very much digging their artwork. I like the book. I like the information. And all of it is very interesting. The book gives very solid meanings for these cards. So it is something that you can use. Unlike Chelle, if you want to use it as an oracle, you certainly could. But because of the boldness of the art, I think I also like putting this on my altar for a little bit of spell boost or meditation boost.
Right.
They're also very pretty and easy to pull if I'm going to want to do a little bit of creative journaling. These are great as a kickstart to magical journaling as well. So they do have gold gilding on the edges. They're big, kind of large rectangular cards and very pretty, dark, very black background with bold, bright colors on them. I didn't love the feel of the cardstock. I didn't love that.
Very matte. I don't like it.
They do glide pretty easily. They do shuffle pretty easily. I just didn't love the feel.
And they sound weird when they shuffle.
But they're pretty good cards. I like them. I was pretty happy with them. But I see that the pointy-toed shoes have been put away. The broom has been successfully put out to pasture with our brooms.
And we're not alone anymore.
Here to help us review the Magic Spells Oracle is our returning guest and author, Judika Illes. Welcome back, Judika.
Thank you for having me back.
We're so glad you were able to come back and visit with us again. We loved chatting with you before, and we are looking forward to having a conversation tonight because we've got a good one here.
Likewise, we had fun last time, so I think it's going to be fun too.
And we've been having fun with your deck. Now, this is the Magic Spells Oracle, and this is a 36 Oracle card deck, and it comes with a booklet that explains the cards. And I love that the booklet gives a little bit of information about magic and how you want people, well, not how you want people to use the cards, but some good ideas on how to use the cards, including some excellent spreads and different ways that they can be utilized.
You can never assume who your readers will be and what they know and how did this book or deck or whatever come into their hands. So this could somebody who knows nothing about spellcasting could receive this as a gift. And I wouldn't want them not to be able to enjoy it and use it.
I think you can say the same exact thing about a seasoned reader or a seasoned practitioner.
Sure.
That this also strikes a chord. So I think the lovely thing about this is I don't know if this was your intention, but it was designed for anywhere from you have never touched an oracle deck before.
Yeah, that was my intention.
To you are super familiar with oracle decks and have years of experience.
Yeah, that was my intention. And I think I've been reading cards professionally for I'm embarrassed to say for how long.
We don't say either. We don't say either, Judika.
No, you hear something age and it's like, oh my God, how did I? But if you're experienced enough as a diviner, you can read pretty much anything. That's just you just become a reader and you look around and you read. Everything is a sign. So you can't let those readers down. But also, there could be real beginners, and you want that to be a positive experience either way.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed reading the beginning of your booklet, reading the first part, because as someone who's been practicing for a minute, it was still very nice to read. You still broke everything down very interestingly. You talked about how magic is natural. I loved how it was a good reminder that you gave everyone that magic is part of nature. It's part of the world. It's part of everyone.
Of yourself.
Yeah. And that can be a good reminder no matter where you are. Like you said, if you know nothing about cards or magic, that gave you a very good introduction. And if you are someone who knows, it was a very good reminder.
I may hear from a disproportionate number of people who are depressed about lack of success, or they feel somehow they can't cast a spell, they can't read a card, it didn't work. And there is sort of, I think, this feeling that is expressed by many people that it comes from within you, that the magic is in you, and so if you can't do it, you're a failure. But it's not true. It's tapping into something that is our birthright and our heritage, and it occurs naturally, and it's not bad, it's not a sinful thing. It's any more than the sky or the air. It's there for us to use. And there are a lot of reasons why sometimes that's a challenging thing to do, but it doesn't mean that you're not a magical person or you're less magical than somebody who's out, boasting about their prowess.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that Chelle and I love to say is do it wrong. Don't be afraid to do it wrong. Get dirty.
Just do it.
Wrong.
Just do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes that's more interesting, play with it and see what happens.
Exactly. And if you're afraid to do it wrong, if you're afraid that you're not going to, be powerful enough, then you're not going to play with it. You're not going to find those things out. You're not going to get that experience.
Every magical energy is natural, but magical spells are people, thousands of years of people experimenting with it and playing with it and tweaking something that somebody else already tweaked. So you should go and tweak it too. See what your intuition tells you. And, I hope these cards facilitate that. That was one of the goals.
Yes. And, you even mentioned your book, The Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells in here. You're like, make your own stuff up, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I've got you if you need suggestions, but the idea is there to try things and to make things up and to put them together and see what works.
Right. And sometimes you read something And you go, that's great. It's like a recipe. That's great. But if I was doing it, I would do it just a little bit different. Do it. See what happens.
With this deck, you added 2 balance cards.
Right.
And I really was intrigued by these because the deck was kind of divided out by elements, earth, air, fire, water. And you've got these 2 balancing cards. So I get the concept behind them, but what were you thinking, I guess is my question, because
What was I thinking? This came from discussions with my editor. The response I have received for this deck has been very, very positive from people who originally learned spellcasting from an elemental perspective. That was the first thing they learned. But that was not the first thing that I learned. I came to that later. And although, in my spell books, I do talk about the elements and how you use them in spellcasting, that was not the foundation of my practice. And so, and I'm working with the team who did work on 5,000 spells. And we were really talking about this, and they really wanted to talk about elements. And I had issues. And it comes from my own astral chart. I mean, I recommend everybody, because in the West, your natal chart consists of those 4 elements: air, earth, fire, water. I don't have any air in my chart. I don't have a balanced chart. I have no planets in air signs, but I have a fairy godmother who gave me an air rising sign. That balances me. So it was something that was in my head. What if everything is fire? What if, try as you might, you're not getting any earth and you feel, but you can have a balancing card that sort of supplements what you lack. My Aries rising is at 0 degrees. It is really like a fairy godmother.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Barely.
barely. If I had been born 20 minutes earlier, I would be a very different person. So I think that was something that was in my mind. And I mean, it's something that when I do people's charts for them. I always, one of the first things I do there, I'm very elemental. I break things into elements. So I guess it was just in my mind. And that aspect that magic spells are intended to make your life better. But the reality is we're not all born equal. Some people have, great parents and good health and, economic advantages.
Yeah.
And some people do not, some people do not have any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's, one of the things that magic spells do is they even the playing field. No, I don't have this advantage. And if you have enough money or if you have enough power, maybe you can get most things done without spell casting.
Mm-hmm.
But for the rest of us, spells that's your, if you learn how to do it, you can improve your life. You can work towards your dreams. And so I guess that's what I was thinking with the balancing cards. What if you don't have a good hand? Well, the balancing cards can come and kind of
even that playing field.
Yeah, level it out for you so that you can move onward.
And I like that they're like kind of that scale and then the yin and the yang, because it kind of gives you that balancing feeling like you're coming back to an equilibrium.
Well, this sort of, I guess a metaphysical sort of assumption that there is a level playing field, that there is a place where we start, and then things sometimes go wrong or go right, or then they go right and then they go wrong. You can get into a lot of trouble with a lot of money too. There's all sort, it's not necessarily a blessing. It might look like a blessing. It's not necessarily, or it's a blessing at the right moment, the right place in the right time. But at the wrong place in the wrong time, it can be a problem for you. So, that might be a little hazy. I don't know if that sounds hazy, but I have a chart with, no planets in air, but a lot of planets in water. And so that's...
Outlook may be hazy as part of your charm. Is that what you're saying? One of the things that I found deceptively simple about these cards, when I first got them, I was like, wow, well, these are very simple. And so I started looking through them, and they are very similar. They have a crow. Is that a crow on the back? They have a
The
crow
crow on
on
the
the
back.
back,
Yeah,
which I love. And then
yeah, me
they
too.
they all have a very similar look. They have the same background, they have
Yes,
the same circle with the
yes.
crescent of gold and a simple design. And the more I worked with them, the more I really appreciated that because the way I found I liked working with these cards is very symbolically. I like using them as part of a spell. If I was doing a
Yeah,
spell where I needed to be traveling, I might grab the Flying Witch card, which is a
right,
broom, which of
right.
course I love.
Yeah,
And I would place this on my altar with my other spell components to pull in that energy, to give me that focal point. And I
yeah.
found they work fabulously for that. I love them for that. And Shell, when we were talking about this, the other thing that I like to do that I found out that Shell does too is
Kind of make them like a supplemental pull.
Yeah.
So, you do a little spread and then, you've laid out your spread, you shuffle these up and you kind of pull. I don't want to call it a significator card because that wasn't really how I looked at it. Kind of like a framing the rest of the reading, the tarot reading. So this I think is also a good tool to combine with the tarot reading.
I I do something very similar, and what this was not my intent, but I try to use my own cards, and I find that at the end of tarot readings, I pull. When you're concluding, I pull one out as a gift. What
oh,
what what does the universe want to give you? There's no bad cards in here, so
no.
there's no, oh my God, this is terrible. Everything here is pretty much everything here is something I love. I am not the artist, but I did pick what the images were going to be. So there's nothing here that I dread. Like, sometimes, I mean, everybody's got a couple tarot cards that makes them nervous and say, oh my God, please let it not be this one.
So you knew you wanted to use the Phoenix and
That,
then they created.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we talked about we're dividing them up into the elements and what the actual images, and the publisher gave me a number. We're going to have this number of cards.
Hmm.
So that was, this was very much
Collaboration.
yeah, it was a collaboration. But yeah, I mean, the Phoenix is a lot of spiritual and personal significance for me. My birthstone is in here.
I'm glad you said that because these cards speak to me in your voice. They feel very blunt. They feel very happy to give you information. They're just like, here's your information, here's your nugget, here's your nugget, here's your nugget. And that's what I like them for at the end of a tarot reading, is it very succinctly gives me just a little nugget at the end. If you pull an extra card, sometimes that can be very ambiguous.
Right.
It might leave you down another path. It gives you more questions. These did not. These would very
Oh,
clearly, yeah.
yeah.
And I loved that.
Although you can read it like that. I mean, you could read it for, what do I need to know or what is coming into my life. You could read it like
I
that.
love the gift. Gift idea. I love that. I'm going to use that next time.
I wanted these cards have to serve a lot of purposes. And that's the way tarot cards, people create tarot cards and people use them for different purposes, but we don't necessarily think about that when we're creating the deck. But oracle cards, the difficult thing and the beautiful thing about oracle cards is there's no rules. It's kind of chaos. So you can read with these cards, you can use them as supplemental cards, but I also wanted people to use them in spell work. I find when I read tarot, I spend a lot of time looking at the backgrounds and the details and as I'm reading, but I wanted this to be very direct, just
Short and to the point.
yeah, although I mean, it will have different. I mean, everybody's going to look at a dragon in a different way. I mean, is a dragon something you like? Is a dragon something that you perceive as negative? Is a dragon something that you see as fanciful? I mean, there is a personal aspect to it.
Yeah, symbology is different. And you mention Yoon in here when you mention synchronicity, but symbology gets to that as well,
Right.
that whole idea of archetypes and some
Yeah,
of it is universal, but a lot of it is so personal. It's cultural, it's time period, it's who you are. There's so many different ways to interpret things. So that's another reason why I liked that these cards give you room to do that. They give you
yeah,
room to put that, whatever meaning you have for those
yeah.
symbols.
If you work with sacred imagery, I mean, you can't assume in the same way that you can't assume who your readers are going to be. You can't assume that we all look at an image and see the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like holy cards of St. Patrick. Do you see St. Patrick? Or if you don't know the story, do you see Damballa, the serpent deity? Because it could be that the snakes are more interesting than, or
Mm-hmm.
if you have another, like if you show pictures to children who don't know, they haven't been indoctrinated, they don't know what the stories are, what do they see?
I
We can
love that.
all look at the Mona Lisa, but are we all seeing the same thing?
I like the idea of trying to look at things with more of an innocent eye, to look at things, and try to strip back your biases a little bit and just look at it with a fresh view.
But when I teach tarot, that's one of the first things I do is I ask people to tell me, write down, what do you see? Take a card, let's go through the cards, suit by suit, or, major arcana. What do you see? And people will tell me something like they'll see the death card. It doesn't mean death. That's the first thing they say. That doesn't really mean death. But I don't want to know what it means or what it doesn't mean. Because now you're telling me something you've heard or Just tell me what you see. And that's a good thing with spell casting too, because a lot of it is, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Not what other people have told you or what you think you know, I don't feel bad. Well, are you sure? Maybe you do feel bad. There's no shame in feeling bad. So I did want that sort of very direct. What do you see?
I love that. And they do come across that way, and I love how blunt they are. But I also noticed when I was going through this, I usually don't love keywords on tarot cards. I don't love keywords on
Me
tarot cards.
too.
On on these I liked them. On these I liked them, and I liked
Yeah.
that they were good here, but I really liked the fact that you didn't repeat them in the book. That the descriptions and the meanings in the book
Yeah.
went much deeper than those three keywords, and it really gave a lot more depth. But you can go quick and dirty with those keywords if you want to, but then for more reflection, you can go and get more information in the book.
If I was creating a deck just for myself, I probably wouldn't have keywords.
Hmm.
But in all honesty, I have decks that I love. Was it the Goddess Oracle by Amy Sophia Marashinsky? I love that deck. I ignore a lot of I just don't read the keywords.
I try to ignore them too, usually when they're on a
But,
deck.
but a lot of people really like keywords,
Yeah.
and a lot of people expect to see keywords. So they were created at different times. I mean, the book, that's sort of a freshly written book.
Hmm.
The keywords, it was decided that the deck needed keywords.
It's okay. Like I
Yeah,
said, I'm okay with it. Usually I don't love
yeah,
them, but in this particular case, I was okay with it. Again, because I use these a lot for spell work. And so to have those keywords right there in divination, not gonna love it because I'm a word person, so my brain wants to
yeah,
look
me
at
too.
them
Yeah.
and I have a hard time not looking at them. But here it was okay. It worked out okay. So I wouldn't worry too much
I
about
think
that.
the design, for people who haven't seen the cards, it's a sort of blue background and the keywords are small and white.
Hmm.
And they're there for you if you want them. But I think if you are someone who doesn't like keywords, they're not hard to ignore.
Nope, they blend into the bottom. The pictures.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I look at them as kind of a jumping off point.
Yeah.
They're a good jumping off point, but then you need to dive a little deeper beyond the three words, but they're a good starting jumping off point.
I think it's also, there was some concern from the editorial staff. I perceive everything, I'm looking right now, I'm looking at the mermaid card and I'm working, and the keywords are wealth, enchantment, secrets, and that is derived from mythology. That's pretty, it comes from some place. It's grounded, it's rooted in that. I think
Hmm.
there was this fear that if you didn't have anything, people might veer off into all kinds of.
Oh no, they might have their own ideas. How
Well,
dare they?
no,
No,
because
they
no, I
might
mean,
get off
it's
track, you
okay.
mean?
But that they might wander. I don't know. There's a lot of negative stuff out there.
Sure. Oh, good point. Good
There's a
point.
lot of very sensational negative stuff. And if you are new,
Hmm.
if you do not know that mermaids are associated with wealth, if you are only watching creepy podcasts, you might think that, mermaids just want to eat people
Good
or
point.
drown you
True.
or something. So but at least to give people a little bit of a direction that no, this is not this is something that is intended to be positive and I don't want to say uplifting, but magic spells, I mean, I keep going back to this. Magic spells are supposed to make your life better. They're
Yes.
supposed to make your life better. They're not supposed to lead you to terrible places. They're supposed to get you out of terrible places. But people are afraid of them, especially if you don't know or if you've been given a lot of, there's a lot of bad press.
It's true.
So I think that was more the concern, that at least to sort of encourage people to see things in a positive light, to see things in a, and if you're not sure about it, you can go, if you Google mermaid and wealth, you'll get a lot of stories. You can, it's a place for you to start. It's a jumping off point for you.
Absolutely. And then you can kind of form your own
Right.
Meaning, your own thoughts from that jumping off point.
Right.
And that's a good point. It looks like this whole deck, like you said, is very positive, and it appears to me, it like gifts of information, nuggets of wisdom. And so having those keywords a certain way isn't so much, like I was joking earlier, that you're trying to like force people down a path, but this has a vibe. This deck has a positive vibe. And so you're giving that side of it and that information. But then from there, then they can go and kind of take that information.
Deeper dive.
Yeah.
I love witches and I love spellcasting. I love magic. Sometimes people talk to me and they say, well, I don't believe in that. And what comes out of my mouth naturally, not anymore because it's happened enough and I can talk about it, is I feel so sorry for you. That's so sad. A world with no magic in it, a world where that has nothing in it other than what you can see and touch for yourself. And it's just, to me, that seems sad. We live in a world of wonders with all this just incredible. It's not all positive. I am, not at all positive. I'm not a Pollyanna at all, but magic can make your life better. And I wanted these cards because we were, these cards didn't come out of nowhere. I was working with the team from 5,000 Spells. It's a collaboration between my British HarperCollins people and the wiser people here in America. So I wanted this to work as a magical tool as well as an oracular device. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted that sort of clean, energetic, you might certainly bring negativity, any person. I mean, that's absolutely up to you. But I wanted these cards to be able to, in the same way that you can use a beautiful magic wand. I have a beautiful, beautiful bog oak wand that somebody gave me that I treasure. That wand is just it's a beautiful and powerful tool. Could you use it for something negative? Sure. Could you come up with negative associations? Of course, people, we have fertile imaginations, but it is a beautiful tool. And I wanted these cards also to be beautiful tools for whatever you choose to do with them.
And I think you hit the nail on the head with making it a cross between a magical spellcraft tool as well as an oracle and a tarot companion, which might not have been your initial intention. But I think you hit the nail on the head with all of that.
But it worked out, didn't it? I find that's what I use it for, probably the most.
Same. I really like that. I like it as a meditation focus. Pull a card at the beginning of the day and not so much as an oracle, but more as a, what kind of energy should I focus on? What does the universe want me to focus on today, kind of thing.
You have like special dates like New Year's or birthday or something. I always pull tarot cards for myself.
Yeah, us too.
I pull goddess cards for myself. I pull, what I find I'm pulling cards from here also. Mm-hmm. So I find it really works for that. Like, what do I? Here I am, at this juncture in time. What do I need?
I like that.
What I love is that not every author and creator necessarily uses their own tools. So I love that you actually use this deck and pull from this deck, and it, you are the creator of this and utilize it. And I love that because not every creator and author does that.
Do you know how I know when my work is good? When I find myself using it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good clue.
I have my encyclopedias. I have like the books, the hardcovers, but they're big. And I also have them on my Kindle as digital copies because they're so easy to search. Because sometimes when I start searching my own stuff, I know I am okay.
Yep, you've done
absolutely.
well.
Which for some reason, I still tell people, I don't know why, and I know we talked about this when we spoke like a year and a half ago. For some reason, I still think it's 50,000 spells.
Oh my God. When we started doing that book, I had done an earlier book. It's been republished at Weiser as Magic When You Need It, but it was originally Emergency Magic at Fair Winds, which was an imprint started by a man named Greg Brandenburg, who I have worked with for years. And Greg ended up leaving Fair Winds and going to HarperCollins UK. And he approached me about doing an encyclopedia of spells. And that was the conversation, because the early book had 150 spells. And he knew I had a spell collection. I just had shoe boxes. I just thought they were interesting. I have shoe boxes full of, because you won't remember, you'll never find them later. So I have shoe boxes, handwritten spells. And he said, can we do 1,000 spells? And I said, sure. And can we do 3,000? Can we do 5,000? At one point it was 10,000. And I was trying to talk him into doing another book. So I kept saying, sure, and going back to, don't you want to do this instead? But then he hooked me. He would have been so happy to do, not true, because he said 5,000. And he goes, what do you think? 450 pages, that's a big book. And I said, yeah.
It is. I must admit that is a large book.
Oh, I wept. I didn't know how. At the end, that book was not written consecutively. I had a wonderful editor, and I just kept. I did not. I never saw the book until it was published. It was really. I was late. I knew it was too long. For people who don't know the book, okay, my contract said 450 pages, but the book itself is over 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
I didn't know. They could have canceled it because I was breaking my contract left and right.
Oh, wow.
They were Greg really protected me because I was just so depressed. But the book, that book was like a horse, a runaway horse, and I was just trying to hold on. That book went where I wanted, right? The book wanted to go where I wanted to go. So it turned into over 1,000 pages, but I didn't know. I was sending them. Nothing was numbered because I couldn't look. I literally
it's probably
couldn't
good you didn't know.
Oh, I would have been I was already so depressed. And I was trying to be fun. So it's hard to sort of write fun when
you're not feeling fun. You're feeling over the edge a little bit, maybe.
Like free fall.
Oh, wow, yeah. You nailed it, though. You nailed it right out of the park, because that book is still a reference. People grab that. It's on my bookshelves. It's on Chelle's bookshelves. I still see people recommend it. I recommend it to people. It is a wonderful reference to have.
It's been 20 years, so I'm okay with that now. But when I wrote it, I was so depressed. I thought, it was a time when that book was first published. People were not as into folk magic, and that book is largely folk magic.
Right.
I thought people were not going to like it. They were not going to buy it. I had been working, selling cosmetics before. I'm an aromatherapist, and I understand, like, if you show me a label, skincare, I can tell you why the things are in there. There's a lot of essential oils and plant extracts. I thought, geez, I'm going to have to go back and sell, skincare in the mall again. No one's going to be able to do it. And here I am 20 years later. So
speaking of 20 years later, you went from 5,000 spells, which I will try not to say 50,000. You went from 5,000 spells to the Magic Spell Oracle. Any parting words that you have for our listeners? Anything else you want to convey about this wonderful Oracle deck?
I hope that I hope in 20 years this deck is still working in the same way that it is now. I try to do things that are as timeless as I can, so that, that they're not just, you use them and then you throw them away and you get something else. I try to really tap into that real, ancient, authentic magic. And I hope, this deck was created with a lot of love, and I hope that it brings joy and happiness and empowerment to whoever uses it.
I definitely would say that has come through. So
Oh,
thank you.
you. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
I appreciate you sharing
Bye,
this with
Courtney.
us. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you again, Judika, for joining us on Back on the Broomstick. We hope to
Thank
have you
you.
back again in the future.
Oh, anytime. I would love to.
Wonderful. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for listening to this episode of Back on the Broomstick in the Solarium. And thank you to Moon Books and Red Wheel Wiser for providing the books and oracle decks today. And of course, a huge thank you to our super secret special guest, Judika Illes. Please join us on Friday for our regularly scheduled episode. And until then, stay wise, stay wicked, and keep it witchy.